The night was heavy with an unsettling stillness. Adrian stepped into the dimly lit hallway of his suburban home, the hum of the heater faint in the background. For the first time, the familiar space felt foreign, almost like a stranger's house. He had been married to Rebecca for 8 years, long enough to know her patterns, her moods, her tells. Lately, though, everything about her seemed off. Her laughter felt rehearsed, her silences stretched too long, and her touch had become a memory instead of a constant. Adrian had ignored the signs for months, convincing himself that the late-night texts, hushed phone calls, and Rebecca's newfound obsession with solo dinners were just figments of his imagination. Tonight, however, he couldn't deny it any longer. As he entered the kitchen, he noticed her phone buzzing on the counter, unlocked. He hesitated, his conscience warning against his suspicions, but as the screen lit up, the message was there for anyone to see. "I can't wait to see you tonight, babe." Same hotel. His heart froze. The words cut through him like ice. Adrian's first instinct wasn't anger, it was heartbreak, a profound sense of betrayal that made his knees weak. He loved Rebecca with every ounce of his being, but this was a betrayal he couldn't ignore. He pocketed his emotions and steeled his resolve. If she thought she could treat him like a fool, she had no idea what was coming. He wouldn't lash out impulsively. No, Adrian decided to play the long game, one that would ensure Rebecca understood the depth of her betrayal. Adrian didn't confront Rebecca right away. Instead, he carefully slid her phone back onto the counter and stood motionless for a moment, letting the weight of his discovery settle. His mind churned, not with grief or despair, but with a cold determination. If she had chosen to break their bond so recklessly, he would respond with precision. Rebecca walked into the kitchen moments later, dressed in casual clothes that betrayed no indication of her true plans. She glanced at Adrian, her smile quick and artificial, before pouring herself a glass of water. "Heading out for a work meeting," she said, not meeting his eyes. Adrian nodded, keeping his expression neutral. "A work meeting this late?" She sipped her water, her gaze fixed on the sink. "Yeah, marketing deadlines. You know how it is." He hummed noncommittally and watched her walk out the door. Her heels clicked against the tile floor, the sound fading as the front door closed, leaving him in a silence that felt oppressive. Once her car pulled out of the driveway, Adrian moved quickly. He retrieved the spare keys to her vehicle, grabbed his phone, and slipped out of the house into his own car. He knew the local hotel scene well enough, thanks to his years in real estate. It didn't take long to figure out where she'd gone. Rebecca's car sat in the corner of a dimly lit parking lot outside a mid-range hotel. Adrian parked across the street and waited. Minutes felt like hours as he struggled against the urge to storm inside, but that wouldn't do. This needed to be clean, deliberate, and untraceable. He watched the entrance closely. 40 minutes passed before he saw her emerge with another man, tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a tailored suit. The man wrapped an arm around Rebecca as they walked toward her car. She leaned into him, her smile radiant in a way Adrian hadn't seen in years. A flicker of rage surged through him, but he tamped it down. This wasn't the moment to act. He snapped a few photos with his phone, careful to capture their faces clearly. Evidence, the beginning of his strategy. The next morning Adrian's demeanor was unchanged. Rebecca greeted him casually, acting as if the previous night had been just another mundane part of their routine. "How was your meeting?" Adrian asked, sipping his coffee. "Exhausting," she replied, her tone clipped. "I didn't get back until late." He nodded, suppressing a bitter smile. "You work so hard, Rebecca. I hope they appreciate it." She froze for a split second, her eyes flickering toward him, but recovered quickly. "They do, anyway. I've got a busy day ahead." Adrian watched her leave, his mind already racing with plans. This wasn't just about catching her, it was about making her feel the weight of her choices and ensuring she understood just how much she'd underestimated him. Over the next few weeks, Adrian played the perfect husband. He made dinner, took care of errands, and even planned a surprise weekend getaway for the two of them. Rebecca seemed pleased but distant, as if guilt gnawed at her, but not enough to stop her doubling behind the scenes. Adrian was building his case. He hired a private investigator, someone discreet and experienced, to gather more evidence. Photos, text messages, even video footage, all of it piled up like a damning portfolio of her deceit. He also began securing his assets. Adrian transferred ownership of their house to his sister under the guise of estate planning. He moved funds from their joint account into a private one, leaving just enough to keep her from noticing. Adrian wasn't just preparing for the confrontation, he was laying the groundwork for a reckoning that would leave Rebecca with nothing. For weeks, he played the dutiful husband while ensuring Rebecca remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath his calm demeanor. Her behavior grew bolder, more late nights, hushed conversations, and unexplained errands. Each instance was another piece of ammunition for Adrian's arsenal. The private investigator delivered a treasure trove of evidence, time-stamped photos of Rebecca meeting her lover at a swanky restaurant downtown, recorded phone calls where her tone was dripping with affection, and hotel receipts that Adrian paid for indirectly through their shared account. It was humiliating but necessary. The more evidence he had, the stronger his position would be. One evening, Adrian surprised Rebecca with an expensive dinner reservation at an upscale restaurant, the kind of place they hadn't visited in years. She seemed taken aback but accepted the invitation with a curious smile. At the restaurant, Adrian was charming, attentive, and seemingly unaware of the deceit that hung in the air between them. He ordered her favorite wine, listened intently as she spoke about her projects, and even suggested they take a weekend trip to rekindle their romance. Rebecca smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "That sounds nice," she said, her voice tentative. Adrian raised his glass to her, saying, "To us," locking eyes with her. Rebecca hesitated for a fraction of a second before clinking her glass against his. "To us," she echoed. The dinner ended with a flourish, a shared dessert, and a lingering kiss that felt as hollow as a plastic smile. Adrian walked her to the car, opening the door for her like a true gentleman. As he watched her drive away, he smirked. Tonight had been a rehearsal for what was to come. Adrian orchestrated his revenge with the decision of a master strategist, choosing their 10th wedding anniversary as the day everything would unravel. Invitations were sent out for an intimate dinner party at their home, inviting close friends, family, and Rebecca's colleagues. Rebecca seemed genuinely excited. "You're really pulling out all the stops this year," she said, her tone warm. "Only the best for us," Adrian replied, his smile masking the fury that simmered beneath. The evening arrived, and the house was immaculate. Candles flickered on the dining table, soft jazz played in the background, and Adrian's charm was in full force. Guests mingled, complimenting the ambience and the thoughtful touches he'd added. Halfway through the evening, Adrian stood to make a toast. Rebecca beamed, clearly expecting a heartfelt tribute to "my beautiful wife." "Rebecca," Adrian began, raising his glass, "the woman who has been my partner, my confidant." He paused for effect, his tone shifting, "and the woman who has taught me the importance of trust, loyalty, and vigilance." Rebecca's smile faltered slightly, but she quickly recovered. "Rebecca," Adrian continued, setting his glass down, "tonight is about celebration, but it's also about honesty." He reached behind the bar and pulled out a stack of neatly bound papers. "And what better way to celebrate honesty than by sharing a few truths?" The room fell silent. Rebecca's face drained of color as Adrian opened the folder. "These," he said, holding up the first page, "are our hotel receipts from the last 6 months. You've been quite the traveler, haven't you?" A murmur rippled through the crowd. "And these," he continued, displaying a series of photographs, "are snapshots of your meetings." He placed them on the table for everyone to see. The damning evidence was unmistakable. Rebecca's voice wavered, "Adrian, please, let's talk about this, "Oh, we'll talk," Adrian interrupted, his voice cold. "But first, let's not forget our guests, they deserve to know the real you." Rebecca's lover, who had also been invited under the guise of professional networking, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Adrian turned to him with a sardonic smile. "Stand up, Damien. Let everyone see the man who thought he could steal my wife and get away with it." Damon remained frozen, sweat beading on his forehead. Adrian didn't give him a chance to speak. "Don't worry, Damien. This isn't just about humiliation, you'll be hearing from my lawyers soon." Rebecca too, he turned to the guests who sat in stunned silence. "I've spent months preparing for this moment. The house is no longer in Rebecca's name. The joint accounts are already split, and as for the affair," he placed the final document on the table, a printout of a legal complaint, a file for divorce, citing adultery. "In case you're wondering, the evidence is overwhelming." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears as gasps and whispers filled the room. "You thought you could betray me and walk away unscathed," Adrian said, his voice rising. "But tonight, Rebecca, you get to see the full extent of what loyalty meant to me. You didn't just cheat on me, you destroyed our bond. And now, I'm ensuring you face the consequences." The dinner party disbanded in chaos. Rebecca fled the house, her reputation in tatters. Damon, cornered and humiliated, was left without a word. In the weeks that followed, Adrian finalized the divorce, leaving Rebecca with a fraction of the assets she'd hoped to claim. He moved forward, not out of spite, but to rebuild a life free of betrayal. But Adrian wasn't done entirely, he had one last act of retribution planned, one that would ensure Rebecca never forgot the night she underestimated him. Rebecca's life unraveled quickly after that night. The carefully constructed facade she had maintained for so long crumbled under the weight of Adrian's revelations. Word of her betrayal spread like wildfire, especially within their shared social circles. Invitations to parties dried up, friends grew distant, and even her family looked at her with quiet disapproval. Adrian, however, found himself thriving in the aftermath. Free from the weight of Rebecca's lies, he poured his energy into rebuilding his life. But he wasn't finished. While he moved forward, there was still one final act of retribution he had planned, one that would ensure Rebecca truly understood the gravity of her actions. Adrian had been quietly tracking Damien's movements for weeks. Unlike Rebecca, Damien had much more to lose, a high-paying corporate job, a pristine public image, and a family of his own. Adrian made sure he gathered enough evidence to destroy that too. He carefully curated a package of damning materials, photos of Damien and Rebecca together, screenshots of their explicit text conversations, and even a copy of the hotel receipts with Damien's name attached. With everything ready, Adrian mailed the package to Damien's wife, and the fallout was immediate, blindsiding, and furious. She filed for divorce and sought full custody of their 2 children. Damien's company, which prided itself on maintaining a clean-cut reputation, fired him within days of the scandal breaking. Adrian didn't gloat, but there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing the man who had helped wreck his marriage was now facing the same kind of destruction. Rebecca tried to recover, but Adrian had anticipated her every move. She tried to fight for more in the divorce, claiming emotional distress, but Adrian's lawyer dismantled her arguments with cold efficiency. When the judge ruled in Adrian's favor, Rebecca was left with little more than her car and a small settlement, forced to leave the home she had once claimed as her own. Rebecca moved into a modest apartment on the outskirts of town. Her lover gone and her social connections severed, she was finally alone with the consequences of her choices. With the weight of the past behind him, Adrian began focusing on himself. He took up running, something he'd always wanted to do but had neglected during his marriage. He reconnected with old friends and even took a solo trip to the mountains, finding solace in the solitude and the fresh air. But the most profound change came when he met Lauren. She was nothing like Rebecca, kind, grounded, and genuinely interested in Adrian for who he was. Their connection was immediate but unhurried, and for the first time in years, Adrian felt like he could trust someone. Months later, Adrian ran into Rebecca at a grocery store. She looked tired, her once polished appearance replaced by a haggard, almost desperate manner. She hesitated when she saw him, her expression flickering between guilt and regret. "Adrian," she began, her voice tentative, "can we talk?" He studied her for a moment, considering his response, and finally nodded. 5 minutes later, they stepped outside into the cool evening air. "I've been wanting to apologize," Rebecca said, her voice trembling. "I know I hurt you, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." Adrian listened, his expression unreadable. "What exactly are you apologizing for?" Rebecca asked, "For cheating on me, for lying, or for underestimating me?" She flinched at his words. "For all of it. I was selfish and I destroyed something good. You didn't deserve that." Adrian nodded slowly. "You're right, I didn't. But I'm not the same man you betrayed, Rebecca. I've moved on, and I suggest you do the same." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." "Thank you," Adrian said simply, turning to leave. As he walked away, he felt a sense of closure. Rebecca's apology didn't erase the pain she'd caused, but it was a small step toward letting go of the past entirely. Adrian's life continued to flourish, his relationship with Lauren deepened, built on trust and mutual respect. They traveled together, laughed together, and dreamed of a future that felt brighter than anything Adrian had imagined during his darkest days. As he stood on the balcony of their new home one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Adrian reflected on how far he had come. The betrayal that once threatened to consume him had become a catalyst for growth, resilience, and ultimately happiness. Rebecca and Damon had tried to take everything from him, but Adrian had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready for the life he truly deserved. Months turned into years, and Adrian's life blossomed in ways he hadn't imagined, with Lauren by his side. He found a new sense of purpose, both in his personal life and his career. They opened a small boutique winery together, a passion project that Adrian had always dreamed about but never had the courage to pursue. The winery became a sanctuary, a place where laughter echoed among the vines and the community celebrated life's simple pleasures. But life wasn't entirely free of shadows. Adrian occasionally heard whispers about Rebecca. Her life hadn't improved, in fact, it had spiraled further into disarray. Rumors reached Adrian that she had married another man, a quick, impulsive decision that ended in disaster after only a year. She'd moved to another city, taken on a string of low-paying jobs, and seemed to be drifting aimlessly. One day, while closing up the winery, Adrian received an unexpected visitor. The sight of Rebecca standing at the edge of the property, looking hesitant and out of place, was jarring. She was thinner, her hair streaked with gray, and her clothes hung loosely, as if she'd shrunk into herself. Adrian approached her cautiously. "Rebecca, what are you doing here?" he asked. "I heard about this place," she stammered, glancing around. "I didn't know it was yours. I just wanted to see you." Adrian's expression remained neutral. "Why?" "I don't know," she admitted, wringing her hands. "I guess I needed to say things I couldn't say before." Adrian gestured toward a bench near the vines. "Say them then." Rebecca hesitated before sitting down. She stared at the ground, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've lost everything, Adrian, the house, my reputation, my relationships. All of it. And I know it's my fault. I thought I could get away with what I did, that I'd never have to face the consequences. But I was wrong. You were right about everything." Adrian folded his arms, watching her with a mix of pity and detachment. "And what do you expect me to do with this, Rebecca? Feel sorry for you, forgive you?" "I don't expect anything," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I just wanted you to know I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve what I did to you." Her voice cracked, and she covered her face with her hands. Adrian remained silent for a long moment, letting her words hang in the air. "I've forgiven you," he said finally, "not for your sake, but for mine. Carrying that anger wasn't worth it. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, Rebecca. I moved on, and I suggest you do the same." Rebecca nodded, her shoulders slumping as though a weight had been lifted. "Thank you," she murmured. "That's more than I deserve." Adrian stood, his tone firm but not unkind. "Take care of yourself, Rebecca. This is the last time we'll talk." She looked at him one last time, her eyes filled with regret, before walking away. Adrian watched her disappear down the path, a sense of finality settling over him as Rebecca's chapter truly closed. Adrian focused entirely on the future. He and Lauren expanded their winery, turning it into a destination for weddings, retreats, and community events. They became pillars of the community, known for their generosity and kindness. Years later, as they celebrated the winery's 10th anniversary, Adrian stood on a stage before a crowd of friends, family, and patrons. He raised his glass, his heart full. "This place isn't just a business," he said, his voice steady. "It's a testament to resilience, to love, and to the power of starting over. Life isn't always fair, but it's always worth fighting for. Thank you all for being part of this journey." The crowd erupted into applause, and Adrian turned to Lauren, her smile radiant. They clinked glasses, a quiet moment of gratitude passing between them. Adrian no longer thought about Rebecca or the pain she had caused. He had built a life of meaning and joy, and for the first time in years, he felt entirely at peace.